Okay, welcome everybody to our Wellness Wednesday. This first week, the topic is mental health, and our topic today is stress. What a big word stress is. It can mean so many things to so many different people, and it could be a physical response, it could be a mental response. But we're just going to kind of talk through and answer some questions regarding stress, and we love that all of you students are here to help us today, and we're hoping that our conversation will reach others and help others too. I'd like to start out by having you kind of think about this first question, and it's what kinds of events and experiences cause you stress? You can answer in a personal way, you can answer in a collective way, but I just want to hear your individual ideas. What kind of events or experiences may cause stress?
And Mrs. Zimmerman, before we get started, can we just get a thumbs up from everybody that they give consent to be recorded? Just take a moment. If you give consent, just put your thumb up. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mrs. Zimmerman, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so what kind of events and experiences might cause stress for somebody?
I think really big stressors would be obviously like tests and anything coming up. Also, like because everyone is going into this new school year, especially freshmen and like seniors also, they're going to this school year and no one has had any experience of how like this school year is going to go and how like tests and assignments will be. So everyone is a little on edge. And especially for seniors, because when they're applying for college, and then they're also like juggling all these new classes, and they can be they have a lot of leadership positions. Like I can't really imagine how they can handle all that.
Yeah, I agree. As a senior, I think that all of us are really overwhelmed with college applications right now, especially because it's September and everything is going to be due soon. So just the overall timeline of figuring out what we want to do is kind of toppled on our heads right now. And for leaders of clubs, especially because of COVID-19, we can't really operate what we normally operate as. And it's really hard to think of engaging activities to compromise with how we have a pandemic right now and how we want to operate as a club regularly. So I think just finding the medium is also kind of induces my stress too.
Can we get a couple comments on what was said?
Yeah. Oh, other Christian, you go.
I kind of want to add on to Christian's comment. I'm also represented from Drumline and peer counseling, but for Drumline, it's been super stressful trying to figure out how we can bond with the freshmen because we can't like physically see them in person. So it's not like we can just be like, oh, let's play a game or let's play like get to know you game, which we can do online. But it's just like it's so much harder to bond with the students when it's over a computer and not like actually in person. So that's something that's been really stressful because it could affect like relationships in the future or like if the bond's not as close later on in the year or in the following years. So I mean obviously there's we can only do so much, but that's definitely been something that's been really stressful within Drumline. But
What are a couple of physical reactions that someone might have when they're feeling stress?
Maybe a panic attack or crying. I know some people who have anxiety, when they're stressed, sometimes they get overwhelmed and just start shaking, and you have to calm them down. by getting their mind off of things. But yeah, a physical reaction would be crying or having a panic attack.
I get a cloudy mind. Like it's really hard for me to focus, and like it's not by choice. I just like can't think of anything at all, except like I don't know how to explain it. But it's just like a very cloudy mind.
Whenever I'm again. Okay, you go.
Okay, well, okay, I've had like my fair share of like minor anxiety, and I can say that sometimes it doesn't even register that I'm stressed. I'll just spend like half an hour sitting there thinking about like all of the ways things can go wrong, and I think that would be a good mental aspect of being stressed, is that you keep running yourself through of like all of the negative outcomes that could happen. And sometimes I think it's better to just take a step back and distract yourself and come back to it when you're in a better space.
For me, whenever I'm stressed, my heart races, like I start to get like shortness of breath and my head like shakes. It's weird. And my like legs and arms get super tingly, but like I feel like I'm the cause of my own stress because I tend to overthink a lot and I really need to work on that. And yeah.
Well, and that kind of leads us into, how do you experience stress mentally? What are some thoughts that might run through your head? And we kind of got a little bit of from Henna describing all the things that can go wrong, kind of runs through her head sometimes. What about anyone else that wants to share?
Especially when you're stressed and you like say like you did a test and you're stressed on like how you did. I always like regret not studying more, or I regret not taking that time and doing more than I should have, and it just leads to a series of regrets.
Yeah, I relate to Kelsey. A lot of times you just start blaming yourself for everything that has happened, and then you start just getting into a negative mood, I guess. And it's really important to pull yourself out of that endless hole of negative thoughts and emotions. So, as mentioned earlier, I think it's really important to kind of distract yourself and then give yourself a break.
So we're ready for another question, Mrs. Zimmerman. How about Mr. Lim? Do you have a question you'd like to ask the group?
Yeah, so you guys had talked about how certain thoughts could add on to your stress, but so how do you guys think your thoughts about what you are experiencing impact your stress levels and also how you respond to it?
Like for me, like when I think too much about all like the negative things that can happen, it's almost like nothing positive will happen, I guess. Like you're so caught up in all like the negative outcomes and everything that it almost seems like something good isn't possible anymore, because like you're just like so focused on the bad, but you never see like all the other possible outcomes that could be good.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with that, because when I get like stressed out, I start to like have negative thoughts. And with the negative thoughts, they're like always like, oh, like you're a failure, like you didn't do good enough. But for me to like get out of that mindset, like I think of something my mom told me. It's like que sera, which is in French means like whatever will be, will be. So when I think of that, I'm like, I start to like relax and ease down, because I realize that like this is such like a temporary situation, that like putting myself through all this negative stress and like struggle, it's like it's gonna like fade away. Like even if you might have like that stress like caused me to fail a test or not do too good on an assignment, I begin to like think about like I have so much time to grow, and like that test score does like not define me. So yeah.
So that's a great point, Kimberly. Our self-talk of all the negative stuff, I'm listening, you got like, oh, I'm this, I'm that. But it's also very easy to flip that switch and find something that your self-talk can be positive about, because everything's fleeting, everything's a moment in time. And so if you can get past that moment in time and refocus, which we'll talk, like I said, in a minute about some coping strategies, but that's a great point. You can just as easily give yourself something positive as you can that negative self-talk. And I think we all do it. Like, us adults do it, like, dang it, could have made a better decision here. But it's also very easy to flip the switch and think, okay, and well, how am I going to move forward? So good idea. Good thoughts on that. Okay, another question. Ms. Brummett, do you have a question?
Sure. Let's see. Let's see. What are some of your coping strategies now? Let's kind of flip to coping. What are some coping strategies that you guys use when you do feel that extreme stress coming on?
I like to do arts and crafts. Like I needle felt, which is just you stab a piece of like wool together with like a needle, and it's really relaxing actually. I also like to bake, or maybe just take some time for myself and read or take a shower. It just calms you down. Maybe light a candle or something. It smells nice. Lavender is supposed to help calm you down, isn't it? Yeah, just take some time for myself and just chill for a sec and let go of my thoughts.
Hi, my name is Srijani, and I represent Spanish Club as the co-president. And a way that I cope with stress is by taking a break and telling myself it's okay to feel this stress. And sometimes I would engage in indoor exercises, either that or I would spend more time with my family and friends, and we can share our feelings and what we are going through, even during quarantine. So yeah, these are some of the ways I can cope with stress.
I think like a lot of times when I'm stressed, it's like those are all really good ways, but like sometimes we might not have time to like really take down and take time for ourselves. So one really way that I just calm myself down is like by taking really deep breaths in and out, and just like telling myself like outside, like actually speaking to me as if I was another person, that it's okay, I can do this, just keep on going, you got it.
Hi,
Yeah.
my name is,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry. Hi, my name is Aleem, and I'm representing HOSA. And a couple ways I deal with stress is I I take like a nap, or I just like sleep a lot when I'm stressed, because I know like some people think it's like you're avoiding your problems, but I don't think you're really in the best mind if you're just constantly stressed and you just have like a million thoughts racing in your mind. And so like to be able to just like rest and allow yourself to just sleep. And sometimes it's kind of hard to sleep. Like I know it's like hard for me to, when I have like homework and tests like coming up, and I have to manage all that stuff. But if I can't sleep in the moment, I like to just like see where I can go, because that's all you have at that point, and make a plan from there.
For me, how I cope with stress would be like also like taking a break, but also going, I guess like going outside and like going for a run, or just like having some like sort of exercise, I guess, and just like thinking and like just like not thinking about what is stressing me out, but also just doing something deep thinking outside.
I think it's a good point to mention, like just going outside and kind of giving yourself other things to focus on. So I also really like baking, I think like Angelina said, and like cooking is kind of interesting because it's like you get so involved with like cooking and like measuring, and you're hands-on, you're smelling things, you might be tasting things. And I feel like that's one of the best distractions from like when you're stressed.
Another Another good one would be journaling, especially because like if you have this piercing thought in your mind that you really can't get out, you write it down. And then every time I write down anything that's really bothering me, I find like I feel a lot better.
Hi, my name is Justin Kung and I'm in 9th grade. Ways I cope with stress are like, I usually just like practice my hobby. For example, I like magic and card manipulation. So I usually just like practice that for like 2 or 3 hours in a row, like at a time. Since like once you really get into your hobby and like you really get into the motion, like you stop thinking about like your stress or like what next homework or assignment you have, and you just like really get into the hobby and you just like stop thinking at all. And that's how I cope with stress.
I think beyond, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Anna.
I think beyond de-stressing yourself, there's also ways you can share your feelings with others. I know that it's harder at this time because of COVID and stuff, but even if it's your brother or your dog, I think it helps a lot when you say it out loud, and that way you're telling yourself again that, oh, you're recognizing your negative thoughts and now you're at like a better position to correct what you think you should stop doing.
Actually, Anna, you brought that up. Great point. When you hear what you are stressed about, when you hear yourself say it, and you might tell 1 or 2 friends, 3 friends, a parent, your GLC, somebody you trust, it dissipates it a little bit. So that was a great point you brought up right there. So the more that you can say things out loud and talk them through, the less invasive they become. And it's a process, but it is true. So thanks for bringing that up, Anna. I did want to ask a really quick question. I'm going to put you 3 freshmen on the spot. And as a freshman coming into Diamond Bar, can you tell me now that, and I know we're in distance learning, but what were a couple of the things that you guys had anxiety about or were stressed about? Talk to our freshmen here, and all the olders can answer and help you guys out. But what are some things you were concerned and stressed about now that you have started Diamond Bar High School? Nikki, you want to try?
Sure, I'm Nikki and I'm a freshman. Something that I was like pretty stressed about in the beginning was that like now that we're in high school, it's like grades really do count. But now that I look at it, like grades don't really define who you are. So, I mean, they kind of do help with like high school and stuff, but because of like a test or something, it shouldn't stop you from trying your hardest at everything that you do. So even though like you might be like failing or something in a class and not achieving your personal goals, that doesn't mean that you're not as worthy as a person or as smart as any other person. So that shouldn't like make you feel less of yourself.
Nikki, you can drop the mic now. That was spot on. Grades do not define who you are. I just have to repeat that. That was awesome.
Justin, what's something you were worried about?
Yeah, so something I was like really nervous and stressed about was like how like what were our teachers' expectations for us since we're now in 9th grade? Like it's obviously similar to 8th grade, but it's also different because we're like transitioning and we have to get used to a lot of things. Like the schedule. And like, since I attended Chaparral, we had like block schedules, but now we have like all 6 periods. So it's like, it took some time getting used to. And one other thing I was really nervous about was like the Wi-Fi connection. Cause like, you know, during distance learning, like sometimes your Wi-Fi disconnects randomly and like all of a sudden, and you have no idea what to do. But I kind of got over that since I have friends that I can text and I can have them tell teachers. So like, but the one thing I was really stressed about were, like Nikki said, grades, but I began to realize that grades didn't define who you were. But it's like how much you work, how much effort you put into the assignment, or like how hard you work, that really defines you. Since grades are just a letter, but it's like your worth, like your work and how much work you put into whatever you do, that actually defines you.
I definitely agree with Justin. Yes, grades definitely don't define you. It matters that you put as much effort into it as you could. It matters that you tried, and even if you failed, there'll always be a next time. Learn from your mistakes. You can always grow and blossom as a person. You have time. Don't worry about it. I definitely think that I was stressed and worried about high school in general, because high school is intimidating, because you go to middle school to high school and you're like, wow, the school is so big. What if I get lost? Where are my friends? I don't know where my classes are. Who are my teachers? And it's just so confusing at first, but you get used to it. And I love it. It's great. I love being part of this community. I wish we could do this in person, but hopefully we'll be able to do it soon. But online school definitely took time to get used to.
Oh my gosh, I love the fact you brought up community, because no matter what grade you're in, we are all a community together, even as older folks over here. But you guys are amazing. The Diamond Bar community is such a place that lifts people up, and we want to continue to reach out and to lift people up and help them when they have stress or anxiety or fear or uncertainty. Because there's so many people. I'm listening to you guys, and you all have this amazing attitude towards how to fix, how to look at something through a different lens. And I'm really loving what I'm hearing. So keep that up, you guys. Ms. Woodward, do you have any question that you'd like to add to the group?
I think I'd like to ask, and this isn't on our list of questions, this is something that just kind of came up for me as I'm hearing everybody. Some of your teachers have used the mood meter. How well do you think you're able to really define your emotions? Because like Mrs. Zimmerman said earlier, stress can be an all-encompassing category. Have any of you kind of broken it down into, am I frustrated? Am I worried? What are some of the other emotions that you're identifying?
Yeah, I would like to, well, I'm representing peer counseling as well. So in peer counseling, every single day he shows, Mr. Lim actually shows the mood meter, and he says, put in the chat what you're feeling. And when I look at the mood meter, I just use like the graph, because it's like a graph format, and just feel like, oh, like how am I feeling? Like, am I in a good mood? Am I in a bad mood? And am I tired, or am I really like high energy? And I really use the graph to figure out what I'm feeling. And once I identify the word, I think about like, why am I feeling this way? So if I'm feeling really tired, I'm like, did I get enough sleep last night? Or if I'm thinking like, oh, I have a lot of energy, but I'm kind of in a bad mood, that means like maybe something made me upset or someone said something. So it really gets my mind thinking about like why I'm feeling that way. So like why I'm stressed or why I'm in a really good mood today. And I feel like it's been really helping me like identify how I'm feeling, and it also helps me figure out how I can like de-stress or find a solution to the problem.
Kind of like adding on to what AJ said, I think it's like important that we can like identify our emotions, because I try to like use a mood meter like every morning, kind of like what AJ said, but I'm not in peer counseling. I try to like use it as how I'm gonna move forward with my day. So if I wake up and I'm like high energy, but I'm like really frustrated, then I know that like I'm aware of that. So I know how I could like carry myself through the rest of the day.
So that was a question that I posted in the chat of I think it is important for us to use the mood meter, and I liked what AJ said in regards to being able to identify the word of what I'm feeling. I actually have a little laminated mood meter, and I have the mood meter behind me too. I have a little one laminated on my refrigerator too. But I think it's important for kids, for any kid, not just kids, but for everybody to know why, and maybe you know, Miss Woodward or Miss Woodward or Miss Turner can tell us why it's important for us to be able to label those feelings, and to like, why is it important to use a mood meter? What does that do for us to say, you know, this is how I'm feeling? What is that? Why is that important? Why should we do that?
I think Maya and AJ said it well in that it does help us prepare, and it gives us kind of like an approach, and it makes stress less, or just however we're feeling that day. And if it's something negative, then we know like what we're getting into. I also think like just it's interesting how our feelings can like tell us how we're doing. And okay. It's interesting how like even our negative feelings have like they have weight. We can't just like brush it off. And like even if we do take a moment to de-stress and stuff, we do have to confront it at some point. And I think identifying goes along with that.
Also, like adding on, I think it's a really good habit to start at a young age, to start identifying your emotions. That way, like as situations go on in your life, you get into bigger like stressors, you can like have ways to cope, and you can identify, and you'll be in a better place.
Yeah, Kelsey, I'm going to relate to that because I did start early. My question always to myself when I got to that place is like, why am I feeling funky right now? I had to back up. Okay, what did I just listen to on the TV? What did I hear from somebody? What was a trigger for me? And I might have to back up like 3 or 4 steps to figure, that's why I'm feeling this way right now. And so it's an awesome thing to do to try and start identifying that. Even if you have to back up 4 or 5 steps to figure out where that feeling came from. Excellent.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's nice because once you figure out exactly what you're feeling, you can take yourself through another thing and say, how can I either like feel better, or how can I continue to feel this way? Like, what can I do to continue feeling happy like this? What can I do to de-stress? What can I do to ease my fear a bit, you know?
I think it's really hard sometimes to kind of label your emotion, especially when you have like, you could be like sad and angry and stressed out all at once sometimes. So I think, especially as like a visual learner, and I like how the mood meter has like different colors and like different layers, like columns and rows, how it's separated. And I think that way, like you can see, oh, like wow, I didn't notice I was like on the level of being frustrated, or you know, like being so high up like on that I'm have so much energy, but I'm also very on that not very happy area. And so I think when it's kind of like when you're saying out what's making you stressed, it's kind of like that same like stress reliever. When you finally figure that out, you're like, okay, well, I think now I know that I'm stressed, and you can kind of go from there, from what other people have said earlier too.
Do you guys have a hard time trying to figure out, like Mrs. Zimmerman said, when you're backtracking, do you find it difficult to figure out the why part of it? Like, why am I feeling this way? What was it that I saw or experienced? Is that part difficult for you at all? And if it is, how do you get there? How do you find those answers to the why part?
For me, I feel like it's really similar to what Mrs. Zimmerman mentioned. Like when I think about like why I'm feeling that way, it could be something that happened 5 minutes ago, or it could be something that happened like 2 days ago, and I really have to backtrack and be like, am I still upset about what someone said a couple days ago? Or am I still upset that I didn't finish my homework, or I got a bad grade on that test? Like it could, like these little events could lead on for a week or even a month, and it's stuff that could even lead on for years, and you have to think about, is this what's really affecting my life? So I feel like what Mrs. Zimmerman mentioned like is really a good strategy to figure out like why you're feeling that way, as long as as well as mood meter.
I think it definitely is difficult to figure out what you're feeling, especially when you are stressed at that moment. But at the same time, the very act of trying to figure out what you are feeling is actually calming you down, because you're looking at yourself from like a third person point of view, and you're kind of analyzing, oh, what were the triggers or my stress, and when you're trying to figure that out, then you're actually calming yourself down without knowing.
So and Mr. Desmond and I said that we aren't going to participate, and we're the ones who are raising our hand. Okay, this is a good one. So on the mood meter, I think that this is just part of my upbringing. Maybe I guess I was always maybe taught, or it was insinuated, that some emotions, like it's good to have these emotions, but it's not good to have these emotions. And that's like anger, for example, or sadness. Like even now as an adult, I never want to be over here. Like when I ask, like if I've asked people like, where are you on the mood meter and stuff, and then I've had days during COVID, especially, where like I'm in the blue and it's really hard for me. Like it's a day where I'm just crying. And then I've had days where I'm just like, I'm in the red, like I'm just angry. And then kind of what Miss Zimmerman said of like backing up and like, okay, why am I feeling this way? And then getting over the stigma of, oh, I'm not supposed to have these feelings, or as a woman, I'm not supposed to show anger, or as a mom, I'm not supposed to do this, or, things like that. And just kind of getting past that and recognizing that all emotions are valid. What are your thoughts on that? And what do you guys think about stuff like that? Like, do you try to push down the feelings of sadness and anger? And then if you do, what are the results of that if we continue to push that stuff down? Like, oh no, I'm not angry, or no, I'm not feeling sad. Like, why would you think that that's like it's so unhealthy for us to do that? But I think as a society, we really want people to always be in the green and the yellow. What are your thoughts on that?
I think as much as like we always want to be in the green and in the yellow, that the red and blue days are kind of part of life. And if you're feeling those things, usually they like demand to be felt. And if you always like avoid it and not like address it or cope with it, that in the future, it's all of the emotions from the red and the blue days are gonna like build, and then you're gonna have like a really, really sad day, or like a really, really bad red day or blue day.
There's like a saying that I read a long time ago. It said like, stress doesn't go away by ignoring it. It goes away by confronting it. And if you're like feeling in the red or in the blue, you need to confront it, or else it's just always going to be there. And then it'll never go away.
Yeah, I want to go back to what Miss Glenna mentioned. I think it's really important to understand that it's okay to validate your feelings, and it's okay to feel how you're feeling. Like, you don't want to just suppress it, because like eventually if you keep suppressing it, it's just going to come up and be really bad, and it's going to affect like your social life, your academic life. So it's okay to put what you're doing aside for 1 second and just like take care of your mental health, because I mean, it'll help you in the long run.
Okay, just following that sentiment, like I'll give like a personal example, and I'm pretty sure it's kind of relatable, especially with like the pandemic. I like my big root cause of like everything, that all the negative things I was feeling, was that I hadn't seen my dad in a while because he works in a hospital. And I think as time went on, and like the time frame where I hadn't seen him got longer, it was just like I was getting so annoyed, and like by my friends. Oh, sorry. I was getting annoyed by my friends. I was lashing out, and I started to like distance myself from a lot of people. And I think that's what happens when you don't acknowledge what's going on. And like when I did finally confront everything I was feeling, I was already in such a bad place. Like my sleep schedule was way off. I was like, sorry, my voice is kind of wrecked, but basically it did put me in a really bad spot. And like when I did feel everything, it was almost like a big regret that I hadn't just started off with this, because now I had to deal with like backlash of like how I treated my friends and how I treated myself during that time. And so it really does, like, just letting yourself feel things and like getting rid of that stigma in your head is really important, because you're saving yourself and the people around you.
Thanks for sharing that, Hannah. I think, a lot of you guys are touching on giving yourself grace when you feel like you just don't have control, and you do need to take that step back and go back and look through things. But you find your rhythm in life, and when our sleep patterns get messed up, when we put things off, and then all of a sudden everything's like coming to a head like a volcano, but doing that inhale and exhale so that you can, I've got to give myself grace right now. I've got to do one thing at a time, and go back to maybe the journaling piece where you're writing things down and just doing one thing at a time, and then sharing, reaching out to the people that you think are, your closest people. And maybe you do need an adult sometimes, but your closest friends, your parents, the people that are in your life. But I'm just going to go back to finding that rhythm for yourself, and giving yourself grace is really necessary when times feel like they're piling up.
That's a question, Ms. Zimmerman.
Yes.
Something that Hannah said when you talked about not seeing your dad for a while because of work. We're home. We're always home right now, right? Like we're home more than we've ever been before. And everybody's home and family dynamic has points of stress. But then normally you go to school for 8 hours and you get a break, and then you come home, but that's not an option right now. So how are you guys dealing with stress at home? Like, what are your kind of, how do you decompress from stress at home? How do you kind of take a break from that or escape from that when you really can't go many places except for be in your home right now?
Well, a way I like decompress from my stress is I have my license. So since I can't really go anywhere, I just go on drives with my siblings, and we just like listen to music, and we just look at our surroundings. Like we went to we'll drive past like Upland, because like Upland and San Dimas, like they have some nice sceneries of like trees and like the outdoors. So when I drive past there and I look out like the window, I'm like really relaxed and like calm. And when I'm like having my siblings next to me, I'm like, I realized to myself like all that stress was like so temporary, and like being in the moment, like with this like happiness of listening to music and being with them, I like calm myself, and that's been a way I've like released my stress.
And during distance learning, you don't necessarily have to be in the home all the time, every day. I mean, you can make a time for yourself to even take a simple stroll around your neighborhood, or taking a walk, going for a drive, just getting ice cream to really unwind. That really helps.
I definitely agree with what Kimberly said earlier. Spending time with siblings is great. I de-stress by playing Minecraft with my sister or watching a TV series with her, so we can kind of escape into this fictional world for a little while and de-stress. And it's great. It's great spending time with my siblings and my family while we're at home. But sometimes you have to get away from all that.
Something else that's also really helped me is just going out and taking a run. Like, it's also getting your exercise, because we're at home all day. Like, we're not in the sun. We're all like inside, becoming pale. Like, we're getting no vitamins from the sun. So I feel like I like to run in the morning or after school, and get that, because running also just lets me distress, because it lets me think about like the situation that had happened, or just think about like how I'm doing emotionally, because you have so much time by yourself just running and getting all like the stress out, but you're also getting exercise. So it's like you get both of them.
I think that's really great. Actually, I also run like with my family, and we try to like pick different places every time so that it doesn't become repetitive. But like what AJ said, like it really does. It helps you think and like calm yourself down, as well as getting exercise. And I don't know if it's just me, or when I exercise, like it puts me at a high. It's like I feel really good after, and like I feel accomplished. And then as well as like I'm with my family, so sometimes we just stop and like stare at things or interesting trees or things that we see. And I think being outside like in the sun, it really helps too, and it makes me like really happy. And yeah.
So you guys mentioned, you know, it's important to share with friends and family what you're feeling. What advice would you give those out there that think it's a burden to share their thoughts and feelings? Because as a psychologist, I've heard that quite a bit. You know, people don't want to reach out because they feel like they're being a burden on somebody. What advice would you give to a peer or a friend on that?
The people in your life are there to care about you because you care about them, they care about you, and that's your relationship. And I think it's easier to think about it as if like if your friend was struggling with something, then you would want them to confide in you so that they could help deal it with themselves. And so just kind of think of yourself as that friend. You are that friend. You know, your parents probably or like your guardians, your friends, your family, like they care about you. They're there to support you. And so it's not a burden to take advantage of that.
Those are great suggestions, you guys. And as we wrap up, you know, we need to stay on a time frame so we have people watch us. As we run, I'm going to go off what you guys were saying just a second ago, Christian. Something that really helps when you're not feeling great is always to kind of reach out to others and see how you can help them. We know that just by studies alone, like volunteering, doing something outside of yourself is always makes your internal person feel really good. And so keep that in mind. Some of the things that you want to keep, you know, as a list somewhere to, if you're feeling stressed, to keep on top of as you go in a direction of trying to self-healing and self-care. You need to, you know, always focus on your sleep. You need to make sure you're eating healthy and getting good nutrients in you. You need to empower yourself to say no if you're feeling overwhelmed and don't have time for something, because it would be a one-time situation and the next time you can jump in if you want to. You need to reach out if you know that a friend maybe needs to talk, or you can go and do something that would be helpful to others. You need to give yourself self-compassion, like I said, self-care, and give yourself grace. And just work on your connection with your friends, especially in this distance learning. It's really hard to, it's really easy to feel disconnected. And so working on your connection. Any other adults want to wrap up?
I'd just like to point out, as everybody was sharing, there was a really pretty long list of coping strategies that were positive that I'd like to just kind of share out for everybody here, plus our audience. One of the most important for me is doing self-talk and correcting the negative thoughts that are in our head. Sometimes when we're under a lot of stress, it's because we've catastrophized things. We've taken a small problem and turned it into a really big one. So correcting the self-talk, you know, using self-talk to correct our thoughts is important. Distracting yourself for a short period of time, taking a break, engaging hobbies and arts and crafts, getting some exercise, taking time with friends, doing deep breathing. There's tons of videos online that you can access through YouTube on deep breathing and guided meditation. Take a nap to rest your mind. Activate your senses. Sometimes we get too stuck in our head, and if we have a nice candle to smell and we take a walk or we do things to activate our other senses, it can help get us out of our head. Laughter is a very important piece of it. So watching some funny videos, talking to a friend, telling jokes, kind of getting out of your head and getting some of those endorphins going just by laughing. That's a really good strategy too. So I really appreciate everybody sharing. You guys have some great strategies, and I hope we can share this out with, you know, everybody who watches this video.
So again, I same sentiment. You guys have been amazing. Thank you so much for participating. Next week is going to be all about physical health, and we have a yoga session coming up that everybody can join in with. But if you have any questions for us, you guys, go ahead and you can email us anytime. And that goes to the collective, everybody out there in Brahma land. And I would just continue to say to lift everybody up, continue to be a positive influence on everybody, continue to be leaders, and we really appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Hey.
That was great. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. And thank you, Christian Gonzalez, for helping us out with our technical